Okay, today I'm going to have a look at this DSE branded television. Pretty sure these were the same as things like Coniers maybe, AWAs, TCLs, that sort of thing. Pretty generic Chinese one, but DSE stands for Dick Smith Electronics, which is just the Australian branding, so Woolworths would have bought these since they own DSE since the 70s or whatever. And this would have been, they would have imported a whole heap and got their badges put on them. Probably came out of around, I'm guessing around 2003 to 2005, somewhere around there, maybe a bit earlier. They did make a different styled DSE, or it might have been a digital branded one, but they're fairly generic TV. Actually not too bad. We did fix a few of these under warranty, but yeah, once they're out of warranty I think they seem to go alright. So it's obviously flat square tube in it. One of the last sort of CRTs ever made, I guess, getting into that era. It's a G5160 model number. Colour television with a remote control. Well, I didn't get a remote with it, but it was only $12, so I can't complain. Don't think there's anything about when it was made. Made in China for Dick Smith Electronics Proprietary Limited, serial number. And we've got component input, so it's one of the ones with component. Got an AV out as well as AV in, so you could basically loop a few of these together, and whatever was displayed on one could be displayed on sort of others, acting more as slaves. And this is like the master TV, so that's what people used them when there was several TVs in a setup and you just want the remote or whatever you're doing, one input basically to display on a couple of different TVs. And I did quickly plug this in just to see it come up with a blue screen and snow, so I guess we'll probably get the pattern generator on it. And that's video in. And we'll see what it looks like. But from memory these gave a pretty good picture. Oh, we plugged in with the TV, yep. A little bit dirty screen, I guess I should give that a bit of a clean. There's the pattern generator. Usually these had pretty good geometry. Colour's still good. I mean, really this wouldn't have had many years use probably. It is a little bit out in the, I can see a bit of green there and some red and blue, quite a bit of red up there, so the convergence isn't the best, but not too bad I guess. Focus looks to still be spot on, so it's a pretty sharp, decent picture. Yeah, it's not out because of convergence or anything's not out because of magnetism, purity errors, that's all fine on the red screen there. And what else we got? We've got volume. I haven't got the audio hooked up. That's the volume display. Channel should get us back into tuner. I think these mostly mute. Weren't much good as test TVs because they always mute. So if you had video with 30 heads or something, you'd get a mute. I could have sworn I saw a purity error then, but must have been my imagination. No, just the green around the where the convergence is out a bit. It comes up with a DSE, not really a screensaver, but whether that starts jumping around the place after a while, not something I took much notice of before. So we should go to DVD as the component input, and that's it, tuner, AV1. Then we've got picture adjustments. Which ones do we use? Channel down to confirm. Oh, is it that one? That's channel down, okay. Channel down's on the left side rather than up. Contrast, brightness, colour, tint, sharpness, BB. Oh, that's the blue. Oh, maybe you can turn off the, I think that's the blue background. Let's get out of that and go back to so you can turn off the mute and the little DSE logo. Good to know. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, menu, not channel. Yeah, there's a button there somewhere, so that was the picture settings. I'll get the hang of it in a minute. Timer, off timer, on position. Oh yes, which channel it comes on, I guess. Position timer. So that's interesting. I'm not sure where do you set the... Oh, I guess maybe it's in this settings. There must be a clock setting somewhere. I guess if it's got a timer. Languages, English or Chinese, I guess that is. Other system, pause view function. Well, I guess we're going back up to system. Is that just the color system? Color, auto, power, NTSC 4.43, 3.58. Yep. Press that. Alright. Oh yeah, just confirm that now. Ooh, what does that do? Well, not a very good on-screen display with all the stuff in the background. The hash, the snow. What do we got? Menu, other, down. Pause view. So is that something to do with... Dunno. I assume it's something to do with channel position view or something, but without a book, who knows what some of these functions do. Function. Cell CRT. Menu back. I said maybe it's a see-through menu, don't know. Pause GP, lock, and password. So you've got like a child lock function, I guess. Cell CRT. What on earth is that? Function. Menu back. Ah. So we have white, black, blue, green. Well, at least we know what that one does. Position. So position of GP. Don't know. I won't touch the lock. So there's a couple of functions there. No idea what they do. I guess I should set that back to 0. Did it change the position of the menu or anything? Maybe something like that. Timer. Off timer, on, pause. Unless there's more settings here. Don't know whether you set a clock on it or something else, but anyway. And oh, gotta hit menu, don't we? Yes, right. Blue background. Contrast 64. What does it go up to? Ah, yeah, so a fair way down from full contrast. I'd normally set it fairly high. It automatically goes back, that's handy. Brightness, so it's only half brightness. Colour is pretty low, and it's pretty well saturated. Tint, you don't really want to touch. Sharpness at 30 is probably fine. I guess we could turn that back on. And that's it by the look of it. So it's a bit, maybe a bit brighter. The white seems a little dark. But it's not too bad on the grayscale there. It's probably where I should have set it. White's a bit white. Oh yes, we did get another band there by the look of it. We were too dark. Should be seeing this band here really, ideally, but not too bright. That's probably more like what it should be. We set the colour. So it's a perfectly good TV besides needing a bit of a clean up. Although I haven't tried the analog tuner, but pretty unlikely to be using that today, as in the modern world at all. Interesting that this pattern generator does the brightness white band opposite on the colour bars to the monochrome. Normally they go in the same order, but it's a bit weird. Didn't notice that before. It's on the old, what is it? Lunya, or however you say it. I guess might as well have a quick look inside this thing, just out of interest. It's got a lot of screws down the front there. Yeah, I think that little sub chassis thing comes off or something. Been a while since I looked in one of these. Didn't think I'd ever bother owning one, but it is kind of a particular era of CRT televisions, namely the last era of them. So if you're going to collect a few of these things, it probably doesn't hurt to have something from each era, basically from 1975 to about 2005 in Australia, for the colour ones. The only thing I haven't managed to get is a Delta Gun early TV, and I did see a couple I could have had for free, but I let them go to the dump a few years back. But no doubt I'll end up with one sooner or later. There's not many models of that era were particularly interesting, but this looks fairly familiar. So I've got a Samsung picture tube, made by Samsung, probably in China, I guess. Doesn't actually say, I don't think. A51 QDX 993X 002 H in brackets. And yeah, interesting, I think all these flat screen tubes with a thicker neck, they went to thinner neck TVs from 80s onwards pretty much in a lot of these smaller sets. But I think a lot of these later ones, same with the computer monitors, they tended to stay with a thick neck rather than the thin one. Looks like we just lift these two little tabs. Now we've got our chassis out. This set really looks like, I mean, look how clean it is. It's almost new by the look of it. Hasn't had much use at all. There is a slight layer of dust, but very little. Pretty standard generic chassis of that era. I've got a little board here with a 4053 chip, which I think does the switching. It's just a CMOS quad bilateral switch or something. Switching the AV inputs probably from component to tuner and possibly to AV to composite. Oh, and of course maybe even that, we've got a side composite here. I didn't even notice that. It's on the left hand side looking at the front. There's a composite input there, as well as the one on the back. They may just be wires so that this back socket switch or something. Thankfully they got the power supplies much better in these later ones. The early Chinese TVs of the 90s were all based on Sanyo 80p chassis type power supplies, which when the capacitor failed would go over voltage and blow a heap of stuff in the TV. Fixed many of those TVs. At least the Sanyo caps were good quality, so they went for years and years and years. It was getting well into the 90s before they started failing and tended to just blow the horizontal output transistor. But the Chinese ones, yeah, the caps were going for 2 or 3 years and failing. Often when the power went off and they'd come on and bang, they'd blow caps up, and the horizontal output, the vertical output, all sorts of bits and pieces. But interesting bit of oddball heatsink, which isn't even, look at that, isn't even attached very well. So it looks a lot like that's an afterthought. Maybe the horizontal, because the horizontal and vertical transistor on the same heatsink, which is probably not the best idea. Even though the vertical chip's down here and the horizontal's over here, so there's pretty rare you ever saw them on the same thing. And they've just like put a couple of screws in there, no proper threads or anything, and they haven't even been tightened up properly, unless they really wanted that to be loose, which I doubt it. That looks like an afterthought to me, where they've added some extra fins. Obviously they would have pressed them out of the original metal, I would think. And whoever screwed that on there did a pretty shoddy job. We've got another heatsink, I guess is the audio output. So this is a stereo TV, I think, isn't it? Yeah, it's got the two things, two speakers, 16 ohm at 3 watts. And yeah, the two input sockets, so it is a proper stereo TV. I assume the tuner would have picked up stereo as well, but no guarantee of that, but most likely I think these sets did. So it's not really much to do with it. It doesn't look like it's had hardly any use. The usual black plastic everywhere getting in your way trying to fix a thing. It looks a bit like someone may have had that off, but it could have just been a dodgy job in the factory. Looks like this plastic's actually pushing it up a bit, so again, not the best assembled things. And yeah, not really a lot to see here. I do wonder whether these black wedges are going to start failing in these TVs, but they're probably late enough. They're probably more synthetic than or better synthetics than the Korean TVs from the 90s that used to all go rotten and ruin the yolks. But yeah, these Samsung tubes were pretty good. Gave them nice colours and stuff. It's got 06 something moulded into the glass there. 21, oh, actually 2190 SC and a 1 and something else, 38 or something there, is it? 36. 036, don't know if any of that's to do with the date or some similar code or just the type of tube it is. But yeah, nothing too exciting there. Better check this cord's in good condition, which it is. Oh, they should have checked it before they sold it anyway, otherwise they would have sold it as faulty and cut the cord off. And there's a bit of dirt inside the thing, so it's up around the top of the tube here and stuff, so it's definitely had a few hours use. But yeah, that's like, you get that in a year or so with most people's places. So I doubt this has had many hours, probably a bedroom TV or something that never got a lot of use. So yeah, so we've got a AV socket on the front here if you wanted to plug your PlayStation or something, I guess, or a camera or some other thing. And yeah, component input on the back makes it a bit more versatile. Have to see if I can find a remote for these. Unfortunately, the Dick Smith, I've got some Dick Smith catalogues from the 2000s, but they don't have this model. They have a, I think around 2006 or something, they've got a different styled set. So I'm pretty sure these are around the 2002 to 2004 kind of era, because I seem to remember fixing them around that time. But yeah, another interesting little CRT TV you can probably prick up pretty easy these days and pretty cheaply. So this one only cost me $12 without a remote, but I'm pretty sure you should be able to get a remote easy enough, even if it's for a different brand. I think Centrex was another one I was trying to think of earlier. Centrex was another brand that these came out under, I think. Certainly all these, they were kind of generic looking TVs, something like this. So anyway, thanks for watching.